Okay, so the first thing that we talked about in your overview is going to be the circle standard equation, okay? And this is the standard equation. I put it in there a couple of times for you. Now, one of the embedded questions that I asked here was, this kind of looks like an equation that you would have seen in your mathematical career before. What does it kind of look like? Go ahead, is it Savannah?
Yeah, the Pythagorean theorem.
Absolutely, the Pythagorean theorem. I mean, look at it. It says something squared plus something squared equals something squared. Right? Isn't that what Pythagorean theorem says? A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Right? So this is basically the Pythagorean theorem on steroids. That's all it is. Okay, so since you've seen the Pythagorean theorem before, this is no big deal. All right, so notice there on my picture, what's the coordinate of the center of that circle? What's the coordinate of the center of that circle? HK, HK. Okay, and that's gonna be the most important thing on this particular circle. All right, now you'll notice that in the notes, do you see how some of my examples have a purple highlight and some of them don't? Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Things that have a purple highlight are ones that I'm gonna target first. And then if I have time at the end of class, I'll go back and do the ones that don't have a purple highlight. Okay, but really the ones that don't have a purple highlight are kind of like a second question of the same type of thing. Okay, so if I don't have time to go back, which is gonna be likely, if I don't have time to go back, one thing that you could do is you could go back later on in your own time and you could try it yourself. Now, but Ms. Roberts, how am I gonna know if I got it right? Oh, well, just take a picture with your phone, text it to me. You guys did all get my text messages, right? Okay, text it to me and say, hey, Ms. Roberts, I tried this one in the notes. Can you tell me, did I get it right? And I'll let you know. That might not be immediately, but I'll let you know. Okay, so that is something that you could do for things that we don't get to in class. Okay, all right, so then let's just jump right into example number 2. We'll enlarge that there so it's a little bit more readable. I've been handed the center, I've been handed the radius, and the directions told me to find the center radius form, AKA standard equation. Okay, so if I've been handed the center and I've been handed the radius, well, let's see here. What was that standard equation? It was something squared plus something squared equals something squared, right? Pythagorean theorem. Let me make that a little thicker so it might be a little easier to read. Okay, so what's in the parentheses in the first blob there? According to your standard equation, what does your standard equation say? Good, x minus h. That's what's going to go inside. Okay, so do you know what your h is? What is it? -1/2. Do you remember we just got finished saying that the center is going to be HK? Well, if the center is HK, I've been handed my H, I've been handed my K, and all I have to do is plug. I don't even have to plug and chug. I just have to plug. Okay, so what's going to go on the inside of my first group? Yeah, because it was an x minus a negative, right? Minus negative is plus. So x plus a 1/2. What's going to go inside of my second group? Y plus a 4th. Now, for the time being, what's going to go inside of that other group, the third group? 12/5. Yeah, now I do need to clean that up. Okay, and a lot of times I have a student who will, let's pull out the calculator right now. No. Now, I'm not anti-calculator. I am going to let you use your calculators. Okay, but here's, how many of you think, between fractions and decimals, how many of you think fractions are better? Okay, how many of you think decimals are better? Okay, let's try this again. I have people who didn't even vote. What's wrong with you people? Everybody has to vote, and you have to vote one of them. There isn't none of these. Okay? Aren't I mean? All right, how many of you think fractions are better? Okay. How many of you think decimals are better? Okay. I think I still had a few not vote. But anyway, so here's the deal. Fractions are easier. Fractions are easier. The only time I like to deal with decimals is if I'm talking about money. Okay, but fractions are easier. So when I want to square 12/5, remember that when you multiply fractions, all you have to do is multiply the tops, multiply bottoms. So square the top, what do you get? 144. Square the bottom, what do you get? 25. If you had gotten that as a decimal, 12/5 as a decimal would have been 2.4. Can you square 2.4 in your head mentally? I can't. Not easily anyway. But yet we can square the fraction easily. Okay, so here's a case where fractions wins. Okay, it's easier for fractions. And the other side, I'm just going to copy what I already had. X plus a half quantity squared plus y plus a fourth quantity squared. And that is my standard equation. Okay, which is what I was asked for. So I'm finished with that one. Now, take a look at what you had. You had 3 pieces of information that were given to you in that question. What were the 3 pieces that you were given? HK and R, the radius. HK and R, okay? So from here on out, if you're gonna write a standard equation, you have to know HK and R. As long as you have HK and R, you can write your standard equation. That's all it requires. Okay, so let's move on and let's look at number 3. What are you handed in this question? Now remember, you gotta have HK and R. What are you handed in this question? You got an H and a K. The center is always gonna be H and K. So what are we missing? We're missing an R. Okay, we're missing an R, but do you see how it says, yeah, you know your center, and you know also one more piece of information, that the circle itself passes through a point. Okay, the circle itself passes through a point. Now, folks, let me just make sure that you understand this. If I put a point right here in my circle does not pass through the point I just drew. That point is inside the circle, but it is not part of the circle. So when it says that the circle passes through a point, that literally means that that point has to be on, I feel like I'm in Sesame Street, in, on, out, right? So if I've got a point that passes through, or the circle passes through a point, that point has to be on the circle. Okay, so that's what that means, just to make sure that we understand that. So let's go back to number 3. So if I'm passing through this point, by the way, what's the generic letters for any point? X and Y. Okay. So here's an X, here's a Y. Now think back to your standard equation. If you took your standard equation and you plugged in the H, the K, an X, and a Y, what would be the only thing unknown in that equation? Oh, an R. So if I just plug in those 4 things, I can find R, and then if I can find R, I can write my standard equation because I'll have my H, K, and R. Okay, so 2-step process here. Let's go find R first, and then we can write our equation. So finding R, what are you gonna write in for your first glob squared? What's gonna go inside the glob? -2, because that's your X. And then what'd you say? -2, because that's your minus H part. All right, plus, let's get our second glob and square it. What's gonna go inside for our second glob? Yeah, -4 plus 7, quantity squared, is equal to, what's gonna go on the other side? R squared. We don't know that. But the nice thing is it's the only unknown. Okay, so I can solve for that. All right, so what do you get for your first term? 16. What do you get for your second term? 9. Which is what? 25. What were the directions? What's my goal here? What am I trying to do? I'm trying to get my standard equation. Okay, does my standard equation require an r, or does my standard equation require an r squared? Go back to your standard equation. Yeah, it requires an r squared. Okay, I have my r squared. So let's write it. Standard equation. First glob, what's it going to look like? X minus 2 quantity squared plus, keep going. Why, I just couldn't hear the rest of it. Plus 7 quantity squared is equal to 25. Okay. All right, number 4. Hey, remind me, what are the 3 things you got to have to be able to write an equation? H, K, and R. Look at your number 4. What do you have? You have an H and a K. What don't you have? An R. Now I'm going to tell you, I really like this one. It's going to make you feel smart. That's why I like this one. It looks harder than it is. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. I don't really know what to do, so let's draw a picture. Sometimes when we draw a picture in math, it automatically points what we're supposed to do out. Okay, so let's just draw ourselves an axis. In which quadrant is my center? It's the 4th, right? Because we're going to go right 5 and we're going to go down 1. Okay, so I'm not counting blocks here. I'm just throwing in numbers. Right 5, down 1. What does, now I'm pulling up an old term for you. Probably, you guys had high school geometry, right? Did you have that course? When it says that my circle is tangent to the y-axis, what does that mean? Touching it only in one spot. That means there's only one way I can draw it. Okay, so if my circle is touching only in one spot, let's see how close I can get here. Close, but not lovely. It's only touching in one spot. Let me see if I can. That's a little bit better. A little. Then what is, did this just point out what my R is? What's my R? My R is 5. My R is 5, right? Because how far do I have to go to get from my center over to my y-axis? I got to go 5 blocks. Right? Because I went to the right 5 to get my radius in the first place, or excuse me, my center in the first place. Hey, let me ask you this. If this question had said same center, but it's tangent to the x-axis, what would my radius have been? Say it again. 1, because it's 1 unit away from the x-axis. Okay, so my R is 5. Oh, look, now I have my H, my K, and my R. I can write my standard equation because I have my 3 requirements. So what's the first glob going to look like? X minus 5, the quantity squared, plus second glob. Y plus 1 quantity squared is equal to 25. Okay. All right, number 5. Now, like I said before, if you've got a question, don't wait for me to take a breath. I don't do that too often. Just interrupt me, okay? And I'm totally fine with interruptions. Okay, so on this one, look at what you're handed. Don't pay attention to the hint yet. We'll talk about the hint. Just look at what you're handed. You got the endpoints of the diameter. What's a diameter? Okay, it's 2 times the radius. When it says that the endpoints of the diameter are on those 2 points, on a circle, where are the endpoints of a diameter? Yeah, okay, think Sesame Street. They're not in the circle. They're not out of the circle. They are on the circle. And a diameter always goes through where? The center of the circle. Okay, so let's just pretend that I have a diameter and maybe it looks like this, right? I know that this guy and this guy are going to be on the circle, right? That's what a diameter is. But not only do I know that, if I can figure out where the exact middle is, what will that give me? The center of the circle. Ah, there's my H and my K, right? Okay, so I'm just kind of mapping out what it might look like. Now look at your hint. Your hint says to find the midpoint. Okay, why? Because that'll give us our center. I just walked you through that. And then the other one says, and then you can find your radius the way you did in the last example. Okay, so let's go with hint number 1 first. Let's go find the midpoint. And there I've given you an even further hint, and that is to get the average X value, the average Y value. Let me ask you something. Let's say that I've already given you 2 quizzes in class. I haven't, but let's say I have. And I said, can you please find the average of those quizzes? How do you find average? Add them together and divide by how many there are. In this case, there are 2. Same thing. If you want to find the midpoint, find the average X value, add them together, divide by 2, and find the average Y value, add them together, divide by 2, and you'll have your midpoint. You'll have the midpoint that's smack in the middle, okay? So average X value, just talk to me about, let's see, I'm gonna just say H here, because this is what I'm looking for. Talk to me about the math that I gotta do to find the H piece of my center. Okay, and what does that give you? 1. Right, 6 minus 4 is 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1. All right, how about the K value? Talk to me about the math that you gotta do to get the K value. And that's gonna be -2, right, because you have a -4 divided by 2. Okay, so now I have my H and K. Oh, cool. Now, what are the 3 things I gotta have to write the standard equation? H, K, and R. How many times have I asked you that question today? Yeah, do you think maybe it's important? Yeah, it's one of those things where if I can keep drilling it into you, maybe you'll remember it, right? Okay, so the next hint, because I've got my H and K now, the next hint says go find R the same way that we did in example 3. Let's go back to example 3 because that's been a long time ago. I forget what we did. Example 3, I had my center, just like I've got my center for the current example. And then I had a point that the circle passes through. Well, don't I have 2 of those now? Because the diameter points, the end points, those are 2 points that the circle passes through. Okay, so basically then, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, pick one of your diameter endpoints and call it HK, okay? Now, which one do you think we should choose? Why would you like to choose -451? Absolutely, I'm with you. Smaller numbers are better. So let's use X and Y for that guy. And then let's plug those 4 in, solve for R. All right, you go. You do that one. Okay. When you get it, show it to somebody close by, see if they got the same thing. I think Jaden's finished. It's Madison, right? Madison and Sierra, Sienna, Selena. I'll get it. Savannah, right? Keep forgetting there's Bethany. You're sitting in a different spot though, aren't you? Are you sitting in a different spot? You're not? All right. Bethany, okay. All right, so did you check with somebody around you? Okay, so let's see, let's work through this quickly. If I have x minus h, that's gonna be -4 minus 1 quantity squared. Y minus k, 5 minus -2 quantity squared is equal to r squared. So this is gonna be 25 plus 49, which is 60, 74. Is that what you guys are getting? I didn't even bring my notes today. I'm testing my math abilities too. Okay, so am I done? No, what were the directions? Standard equation. Okay. So then let's go back. We've got x minus 1 quantity squared. That was my h. Plus y minus -2 quantity squared is equal to 74. My r squared. I don't even need to know what r is. Square root of 74 sounds gross. Is that what you guys came up with? Okay. All right. Let's go on to graphing. When it says give the D and R, what does that mean? Domain and range. Yeah. Okay, so to remind me again, what are the 3 things that you got to have to write an equation, standard equation? H, K, and R. All right, I'm going to blow your mind with this next statement. You know what the 3 things are that you have to graph? H, K, and R. I know, shocking. Okay, those are the 3 things I got to have to graph. So I started you out pretty easy on this one. What's my H and K? Or maybe the better question, where is my center? Try again. Good catch. -2, 5. What's my radius? 4. Why is it 4? Yeah, because 16 is my r squared. So my r is just a 4. By the way, if you chose not to print notes, you're probably going to have a little bit harder of a time with this. If you chose to print notes, you automatically get graph paper. You don't have to draw your own graph grid or anything like that. So that's another reason that it's very beneficial to go ahead and print my notes. All right, so let's draw the center. We've got -2 and 5, so 2, 4, 5. So there's my center. Now I know I get to cheat because my iPad will draw circles nicely and your paper doesn't do the same thing. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm not asking that you bring a compass with you to class, but just make it look kind of like a circle. All right, so what I'm gonna do for my center is I'm gonna go up, down, right, left, 4. Okay, so if I go up 4, right 4, down 4, and left 4. In fact, I'm not even going to use the iPad capabilities. So you can see mine's not gorgeous. Okay, I'm not asking for perfection. Just do the best you can to draw a circle. Okay, so the second part of this is what's the domain and range? All right, what's your domain? Oh, she's making you remember something from Math 110. -6 to what? To 2. Now question, what kind of symbols should I use on those numbers? Why square brackets? Yeah, I'm actually using the -6. I'm using the 2. Okay, can I show you something real quick? This is so stinking cool. Because I'm a geek. Take a look. Isn't this number the right and the left number? Because it's an x value. All right, so think about this. If I take -2 and move left 4, what's -2 minus 4? And then if I go right 4, -2 plus 4, because that's the right and left numbers. What's the up and down number? Isn't it this one? Now, let's not even look at the picture. If I am at 5 and I go up 4, where will I land? 9. If I go down 4, where will I land? Yeah, so now let's compare that with our picture. Okay, so what's my range then? One to 9. Remember, I asked you the question backwards. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. I asked you the top question first. Okay, but you always, always, always start at the lesser number first. Okay, so yeah, it's nice to have the picture. It checks my work, but I can also do that mathematically. Okay. All right, next, number 7. What's wrong with this? It's not in standard form. And remember, in order to draw something, what is it that I need to have? H, K, and R. Well, I can't see my H, K, and R unless it's in standard form. So step number 1, get it in standard form. Okay. Now, it's almost in standard form, so what should I do to get it in standard form? Move the constant. All right, so if I move the constant, I'm going to have x plus 1 quantity squared plus y squared is equal to -2. What's the center? -1, 0. And then we run into a problem. What's the problem? You can't have a negative radius, right? Radius is a distance. It's how far from the center to the circle. It's impossible to have a negative radius. Until we get to chapter 11. Then we'll be allowed to have a negative radius, but not yet. You can't have a negative radius. That would be like saying, well, Miss Roberts, I walked backwards to Walmart, so I went -3 miles. No. I don't care if you walked backwards. You still went 3 miles, right? You can't have a negative distance. So when I'm looking at this and they tell me to draw this, sorry, not possible. There is nothing that I can draw. Nothing. I could draw, I guess, the center, but there's not a circle here. Okay? So we would say that this is not a circle. Can't have a negative radius. All right, so I'm going to skip number 8 because it's not highlighted. Come on, come on. So I think being attached to so many different things is causing a little bit of a lag. Now, one of the videos that I made you watch was the completing the square video, right? Okay, so take a look at this, the completing the square part of the overview. Okay, because I'm not teaching you completing the square. You had to learn that in Math 102. You had to use that in Math 110. Okay, so this is not the time to teach you the completing the square, which is why I did it on video. I'm not going to take class time. Okay, but if you're a little fuzzy on completing the square, because a lot of Math 102 and Math 110 students are, if you're a little fuzzy on completing the square, please go back and really digest how to complete the square on that video. Because we're going to complete the square for circles. Then we're going to complete the square, and it's going to be a little bit more challenging for parabolas. And then we're going to complete the square, and it's going to be even more challenging for the ellipse. And then we're going to complete the square for hyperbolas, and it's going to be the worst of all. So now's the time to get comfortable with completing the square, if you're not already. Okay, so that video has been prepared for you so that you can get comfortable with it. Okay, so let's complete the square here. Again, we need H, K, and R. What are my directions? Sorry, let's go read the directions. It's better if we know what to do, right? Decide whether it is a circle or not. And then if it is, give the center and the radius. Well, the only way I can give the center and the radius is if it's in standard form. And the only way I can get standard form is to complete the square. Okay, so let's go ahead. And you've got your completing the square notes right in front of you, I hope. What was the first step in completing the square? Factor out the A. Okay, so where is an A? When I'm talking about completing the square, where is an A? It's in front of the x squared. But now I'm working in two variables. So I could have an A in front of the x squared, but I could also have an A where? In front of the y squared. Okay, so the first thing is that I want to get rid of the A. Now, let's see if we have some predictions. The directions did say, is it a circle or not? How many of you would vote, yes, it's a circle, right this minute? How many of you would vote, no, it's not a circle? Oh, come on, somebody vote. Listen, no, put your hands up. Ready? I'm gonna like blow your minds with this next statement. It's okay to be wrong. You've already seen me mess up in front of you. How embarrassed do I look? I'm not. Unless you're a robot, and you're not, you're gonna make mistakes. And let me tell you something, when you're making mistakes in here, I'm happy. Because you're learning. Mistakes are where you learn. Get it in your minds. Mistakes are good. I don't care if you believe me or not. I get 51% of this vote, and I'm right.
Tilted back.
See? You see your teacher making mistakes. So what do we do when we make mistakes? We learn from them, and we fix the problem. Okay, that wasn't a big deal. Don't talk to us about it. But seriously, folks, I'm all right if you're wrong. By the way, when's the best time to make mistakes? In class in front of everyone or on your test? In class. In class. Look around. Look around. Go ahead, look around. Your fellow classmates are human too, and they're gonna mess up just like you are. I'm all right if you're wrong. I'll correct you. Don't take it personally, that's my job. Right? I'm here to teach you the right way to do things. So if you're wrong, that's okay. So let's try this again. How many of you think it's probably gonna be a circle? If you just had to guess, you think it's probably gonna be a circle. Okay? So how many of you think it's probably not going to be a circle? Okay? Now I'm going to target the second group. Why do you think it might not be a circle? Iona? Why? That negative 25 kind of, right? That makes us feel. Okay? So I'm with you on that. I'm with you. Let's find out. Because we really can't make that judgment call until it's in standard equation form. All right? So even though there's a negative 25 there, I'm not going to freak out about that yet until it's in standard form and I really find out if it's actually a negative 25. Because that's not my R yet. It's not in standard form. So let's find out. Okay, so you told me to get rid of the A. The good news is I don't have any A's, right? There's nothing in front of the x squared. There's nothing in front of the y squared. What's the next step in your completing the square video? Constant to the other side. Check, done. What's the next step? Yeah, so let's kind of spread things out, okay, so that we can see this a little bit better. So I'm going to have an x squared minus a 12x, and I'm going to leave some space to complete the square for the x's. And then I'm going to write plus y squared plus 10y, and I'm going to leave some space so that I can complete the squares on the y's. And then I'm just going to copy my constant that for right now is being completely ignored. By the way, there was no math done here. All I did was spread it out. Okay, so what's the next step say I should do? Take half of the b. What is in the x piece? What's the b? Negative 12. Good. All right, so take half. What do you get? Negative 6. What's the next step, does it say? Square it. So if you take a negative 6 and you square it, what do you get? A positive 36. And what does the video say you should do with that positive 36? Add it. What does it say? Because I've done two different things. What does it say? Add it to both sides. All right, so I'm good with that. So we'll do plus 36 here, and we'll do plus 36 here. By the way, all of a sudden, what just happened to that negative 25 problem that we thought we had? It just turned positive, didn't it? Now, we do need to do the same thing with the y's. Okay, so go back in your steps. What do? What does your step say? Half of b, right? What's half of b? 5. What are you supposed to do with it? Which is? And then what are you supposed to do with that? Add it to both sides. Well, now your 25s totally zero each other out. The only thing you're left with here is a 36, right? Okay, what's the next step in completing the square? Factor the, how did I word it? 3 terms? Yeah, let's factor the trinomial. Factor the trinomial. Now, there is a shortcut. By the way, here's, ooh, try that again. Here's my first trinomial. Okay, let's factor. There's a shortcut. Did I talk about the shortcut in the video? I made that video like 4 years ago, so I can't remember. Yeah, okay, good. So let's talk about the shortcut. The shortcut says that you're going to have a glob squared, right? What's going to be the first piece of your glob? And what's going to be the second piece of your glob? It was the half of B piece. What was the half of B piece? Oh, okay. And so let's do that again for our y's, because now we also have another trinomial here. So what's the first piece? And the second piece? And what do you see that's emerging here? Yeah, my standard equation is emerging. Okay, so the direction said, is it a circle? Yes or no? Yes, it is. If it is, tell what the center and the radius is. So what's the center? By the way, don't get lazy on me. It's a coordinate. Coordinates require parentheses and a comma. Okay, so don't just throw the numbers in there. So 6, -5 is my center. What's my radius? You got it. Any questions? Okay, so we'll, oh, look, that's the last one. Okay, because that's the last highlighted one. Yay, okay, so good. I get some time to work with you then, all right? So here, and by the way, I don't always finish early, and just for the record, just because I finish early does not mean you get released early, like ever, okay? And I don't care what age you are. I'm not just talking to you like that because you're high schoolers. My college kids don't get released either, okay? We got work to do, right? So let's do this. There was a couple of questions that we didn't even get to, okay? So let's see, we, number 10, number 8, and number 1, okay? So let's do this. Let's start at the hard one and work our way backwards, okay? So I want you to start, and by the way, number 11 I just threw in there in case you had questions on your homework, okay? But let's go do number 10. And when I say let's, I'm talking about you, all right? I'm not gonna work it in front of you. But what I want you to do, as long as you wear a mask, you can work together, okay? And so feel free to work together, and I'll just kind of walk around. If you get finished with number 10, then work your way backwards, and let's go to number 8. Number 1 should be a breeze by now after all that we've done today, okay? Now, if you get done with all 3, then I want you to pull out your computer or use the one in front of you and go ahead and pull up my lab, okay? If you get finished with all 3, which you should, okay? All right, so go ahead, start with number 10, and then I'm just gonna work my way around and answer any questions that you have. If you get stuck on number 10, you might look at the example I worked for number 11. Walk the talk with each other, talk to yourself. Natalie and Marina. Before we go too much further, take a look at the example and see if that triggers anything. But let me ask you this question. What's the first step in completing this work? And so you did factor out.
So that means on the other side you could add.
Okay. But look at this example and see that you might be easier, right? So you're going to do
Okay, yeah, I got mine. This is a circle. Have you guys finished? It's circle.
That's correct. You were going from here, right? Is that where you were getting the plus sign? Okay, tell me what exactly you want. Okay, I agree. Where did you get the 9 that you wanted to put here? But the thing is, what's the middle term? You didn't write it, but here's the middle term, the B term is 6 y. What's the middle term here?
You said 11, right? No?
It would be a 0, right? So when you just have a 0,
Wait, what did I do?
and when you square that,
Yeah.
and then when you multiply by 9, okay, does that make sense? Okay, now, what you've done is correct. What you might want to do is pull up that number 11, or you can use it from here. Is there an easier thing that you could have done if you look at the from the start? But keep going, because what you've done so far is correct. You should have 8, where did you get 8 from? So don't understand.
Does this look better?
Here.
Sort of.
I'm good with the bathroom, what did you do? Yeah.
But I need for number 10. But I did that.
But now what? Because it's still not going to change. And if you look at this example, you could have done that at the very beginning as well. You could have divided 9 and it would have made this work a lot.
That's what I got. Okay, thank you.
It's a lot.
The 9,
So,
9, please, and we'll do this. Yeah, that'd be this. Yeah.
well, you've done that, you factored out the A. So this is where we are now, right? So you want to take half, all right, so for the X, there's no B value, right? So only let's look at the Y's. Take half of the B value. Okay,
Let's go back and do 8.
yep, yep.
This is what we have to find out. It's a second one. X squared plus 8x plus y squared minus 6y plus 16.
You get the same thing, Lauren? Did she explain it to you?
Get that.
Does it make sense? Okay, she's a good explainer.
Okay. Then it's plus 16.
For the center, for 8, 8 was the.
We are to give this to
And then the base. For number 8, yeah.
so let's go ahead and move
This
the
is
constant
10. But this is 8.
16 move it.
Did you divide everything by 9
Never
at the
mind.
very beginning on number 10? Okay.
I asked her. You got the same thing? All right, what? Thanks.
Now we're gonna separate the
That's number 10 home.
You divided it. Why didn't you divide everything by 9? Yeah, you have to divide everything.
Okay. The only thing you did wrong, your part, the only thing you did wrong was that your 9 disappeared. Right?
And afterwards, your 9.
Here and here. Okay, so they just magically disappear. So if you put a 9 here and a 9 here, this line will be correct. And then you can take all 3 terms.
Okay, it disappears. Because I did that. I
Well,
don't
who
know.
needs
Does that make sense?
What?
So what all I know is how it.
No, because I did it like that, but then I was like doubting myself, you know? Okay, so it cancels out. You no longer have the 9. So you just have x squared, and then you have blank for 9y.
Then you do it on the.
Like you can't take out the y. So you can only take out the 9. But the 9 is canceled.
I've never 10 though.
So it's just, that is not 5, that's 6. 54 divided by 9 is 6. Then you're going to have plus y.
And actually, this is correct.
Plus 6.
Well, it is more, but then if you take this line and divide
Also
each
going to
by
have
9,
plus blank, right?
you're gonna
So
have
do
the
you
same
get
answer.
how I got there?
Right, so you weren't wrong.
Yeah, you divided the whole thing by 9, and then it just simplified it as the same thing.
So question,
It's just
do you think it'll be easier to print them or to write them all out?
divide it all by 9, and you
Yeah.
get x
Do you have a place that you can do
plus
that?
y squared plus 6. We're leaving blanks next, you know how.
What are your all's rules about non library?
So b here is 0. So 0 divided by, it's just going to be 0, right? Then, yeah. So do the rest, and then.
Oh, 6. This is the messed up one.
Okay, all right, keep going.
So it should be a positive. Yeah. So that's. Yeah.
And then your 3 would be positive because of.
So just get your sense.
So remember, if you've gotten through the 3 examples, let's go ahead and pull up my lab because I'd like to show you a couple things in my lab as far as assignments are concerned. So the number 10 is on the board. I looked at most of yours, and most of you all have it correct, or you are on the right track to having it correct. So that's, this is a way to do number 10. I took the 9 out first because it makes life a little easier. Not required, but it does make it easier. I didn't throw up number 8 or number 1. Do you guys have any questions on any of those 3? Cecilia, you have a question? Say it again. And are you asking why? Because remember that the standard equation says x minus h. So it's always going to look opposite. The center number is always going to look opposite from the standard equation number. Am I not understanding what you're asking? Let's look at, where's your first one? See how the center is at negative? So this is the x minus negative. This is always x minus 8.
Seriously?
So it's going to be x minus.
I want to see what's up here it is.
So x minus negative. Why it turns into a plus.
I didn't know.
Minus negative.
You just wanted to
No,
check.
I didn't know if the x squared was inside. I was like, x squared was like whatever external, like that's you look at that in the school and stuff, and then you kind of have these
But here, it's
But not in
negative, and here, it's
What is it? Are like,
I'll do that because I forgot to like when I brought it out to 72, I forgot to make it 8, and I'm like, something isn't right. And I'm like, you need to like with you just stop. You need to like actually look back at your other notes and like try to figure it
I
out.
did.
No, you didn't.
All right, so we've got a couple of questions on number 8, so let me just work through that one really quickly. I'm not gonna like full on explain, but I'll work through it really quickly just so that you can check your own work on that. So we've got x squared plus 8x, and I'm gonna leave some space to complete the square for the x's. And then we've got our plus y squared minus 6y. I'm gonna leave some space to complete the square for my y's. And then remember, you bump the constant to the other side, so that's gonna be negative 16. Okay, now let's go back and complete the square. So we wanna take half of our b, which is, and do what? Square it, which is, so I'm going to add 16 to both sides, right? And then we want to do the same thing for the y's. So take half of b, which is negative 3, square it, and we want to add that to both sides. So I have a plus 9 and a whoopsie plus 9, right? Okay, so then we're going to factor the trinomials, and let me stop right here. Yamin, did that answer your question? Am I to your question part yet? Not yet, okay. All right, so let's factor the trinomial. So this guy's gonna turn into a glob squared. What's inside the glob? Because remember, it's an x and your half of b, and your half of b was a positive 4. Plus, we got another glob squared. What goes inside? Y minus 3. And then on the other side, our 16 zero each other out, so I just have a 9. Right? Okay, so now it's in my standard form. Is it a circle? Yes, it is. What's my center? Negative 4, positive 3. Remember, you got to switch the sign on that because the standard equation says x minus. Okay? And then what's my radius? And how do you get that? Yeah, remember that 9 is where your r squared is. So if r squared is 9, that means your plain old r has to be a 3. Okay? Did that answer your question? And then Cecilia, did that help out with what the question that you had as well? Okay. All right, does that make sense? Okay, so did you guys pull up my lab? Okay, let me kind of stand behind you so I can see your screen. So when it comes to my lab question, let's see, today's Wednesday, so you've already got things that are due before you and I see each other next, okay? So let's talk about it. What's due before, and please go find it. You don't have to just go on memory. I want you looking these up right there on your screen. What's due next? Can you say that again? Okay, 8.1, learn the content. Now, actually, I might not have fixed that. It should have, learn is always due before I teach. So that it doesn't, does that say that it's due at midnight? Okay, it should have said it was due at 11 o'clock, which is no big deal. Okay. Learns and videos are always due before class. Okay, so that should have said that it was due at 11 o'clock. Okay, my bad. My bad. I'm still trying to get everything. Yeah. Okay, what else is due before I see you next? Okay, a demonstrate. What demonstrate is due before I see you next? 8.1a. And when exactly is it due? 11:59 when? On Sunday night. Okay. What else is due before I see you next? I think there's one more thing. There should be. Oh, I might have pushed it off. Okay, good. Yes. Can you say it again louder? 8.2 videos. 8.2 videos. Are they? No, that's due next Wednesday. What videos? Or maybe I made you do all the 8 ones. Yeah, you told me. You told me I made you do the parabolas already, didn't I? So if you do the parabolas and you're still a little iffy on this, go back and watch the parabola part, because that's what we're going to talk about next class period. Okay. And the other one that I'm thinking about now that I think about it, I pushed it off, is the practice. Okay, but it's not due on Sunday because 8.1a and 8.1b are both in the practice. I made it due later. All right, now of all the things that are due, what counts towards your grade? The demonstrated. Anything else? I mean, extra credit if you want to do them, but that's not required, is it? Demonstrates the only thing that is absolutely required by Sunday at midnight. Now, do me a favor. Can you pull up 8.1 practice? 8.1 practice. How many questions are in 8.1 practice?
45.
Holy cow. There's a lot of them in there, isn't there? Okay. 46 questions. Woo! Now, don't click on a question, but can you just hold your cursor on question number 10? Don't click on it, just hold your cursor on top of it. What pops up? 8.1.29. Okay? Go back, get out of that, and go to your 8.1a demonstrate. 8.1a demonstrate. How many questions are in there? Okay. Aren't you glad that that's the one that's getting graded and not the one with 46? Okay. Can you take your cursor and hold it on top of question number 9? What's that say? 8.1.45. Okay. Now, I don't even know the answer to my next question. Can you see if there's an 8.1.29 in that list? It would probably be before number 9. There's not? I actually, like I said, I don't know the answer to that question. What does it skip from? 8.121 to 8.133. Okay, so let's say that you're stuck on question number 5. Hold your cursor on question number 5. What's that one? 8.1.21. Where would you go to get some extra help if you're stuck on question number 5? You would go to the practice. And what would you be looking for inside of those 46 questions in the practice? 8.1.21. Because remember, the practice gives you a whole bunch of learning aids, like help me solve this, give me another one. The demonstrates don't have those. But the practice questions has all kinds of learning aids that will help you. Okay? So if you get stuck, I'm not asking you to do 46 practice questions. That's nuts. But if you get stuck on one of your 11 demonstrate questions, you've got a great place to go to get some help. And that's one of the 46 practice questions.